Hi, my name is Guy Trennan and this is Tech Edge, and today we're here with Vernon Miller, who's one of our alumni masters for the week, and he is a teacher in Walt Hill, Omaha Nation
Correct.
School, and he is teaching business. And I had some questions because one of the things that Vernon has been doing is teaching multiple things, including social media, which is very interesting because I think that's something a lot of schools are struggling with. Some schools are just saying, I don't want to touch it. Other schools, I think, are struggling. Okay, how are we going to teach it? What is our role in teaching it, especially since a lot of schools just ban it, try to ban it outright, and it's becoming harder and harder. And the second thing is, and that's something I learned as we were talking, and that is that you work in an environment where you don't have a lot of equipment, so you've got to make do. And I think that's something that, again, a lot of teachers around the nation, definitely in smaller schools and in rural schools, have to deal with. You have limited resources and you've got to make do. How do you do that and still teach interesting things, engaging things? So tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure. In my school system, you know, about 4 or 5 years ago, when social media was, evolving pretty rapidly, I was aware of my students using it, and they had questions for me every now and then. At the time, Facebook was almost something they didn't consider because MySpace was the bigger thing back then. And so I was concerned for my students because I have a sister who's now a senior in high school. 4 or 5 years ago, she was an 8th grader, 9th grader. She was getting on social media, and just that thing, that's what initially started my concern with our students. And so I wanted to, with her, I looked out for her safety and wondering, okay, if I'm not teaching it in the school, I'm sure other students aren't learning it in school either about safety-wise what is expected, in terms of preventing incidences or anything that could happen at a safety level. But not only that, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to be to use in social media.
And I actually, as a parent to teenagers, I have to say that I've experienced it from the other way, is I try to work with my kids a little bit as a parent, but it's hard at that age as a parent to work with them on things that are social because you're the parent. You're too old, too out of touch, you don't get it. But schools didn't do much, and my kids actually made some serious mistakes, not safety-wise, but social-wise, saying the wrong things or in the wrong tone. So I thought that when you started talking about teaching about social media, I immediately thought that would be fantastic because otherwise you're making mistakes, and those mistakes can live with you for a long time. Everybody in school remembers you wrote that on your Facebook page, and it stays with you.
Exactly.
And it can set you up in some ways.
Exactly, and that's what I was concerned with, and like I said, if I knew that, it wasn't being something that's a part of anybody's curriculum, it needs to be, but who does it? And I figured as a business teacher, technology teacher, I'm in direct contact with the students' technology learning and what they're doing in the school. And so I just, developed the presentation, Social Networking 101, and where it talks about first an intro, what those different social networking sites are, what exactly is social networking, because it's more than just those 4 websites. It's, using the video, the communication part of it, there's just so much, the photos and the sharing, and so I wanted to make sure that my students were aware of, one, what's out there, because their resources and what they are accessing now is limited. But I think that's also what's happening with the involvement of the different networking sites. Like I said, MySpace was big, now it's obsolete. Facebook is kind of, I think, for our students becoming something they don't go to as much. Now it's Twitter, and they're tweeting like crazy. And so, like I said, as an educator, though, I wanted to make sure that my students were aware of issues that they should be cognizant of and aware of. And so one was safety, and then now a big issue that's evolving over the past few years is bullying now. And I guess with the appropriate level of that they need to be concerned with and how they're on those sites, what's appropriate, what's not. Now bullying and how would affect the things that they're saying are and the things that they post and the issues that our students are dealing with now that they haven't had to before. Like I said, people call them, internet thugs because, they may do something on internet they wouldn't do in person or face to face because they're using that computer screen or the internet as that that kind of, you know, mask from, you know, saying something out loud. And so that's why I was
mask, and it doesn't feel as real.
Yes.
So you do things that are hurtful and you don't always mean it in the same way, and that's why you would avoid doing that in person, because in person you immediately see reaction and you can move back. When you send something in the Twitter sphere or whatever you would like to call it, it's there forever, and you can't take it back.
Exactly. And so I maintain the school's webpage. And I think, you know, web pages right now, they're kind of, Facebook is pretty popular.
Yeah.
And so what I've noticed too is, you know, which is a good thing, is schools are seeing the value of Facebook now. You know, a couple of years ago, I created our school's Facebook page. And, you know, I've always given that warning when I talk to schools and to staff members that if you don't get a hold of that name of your school, the students will. And I know of schools in our state who the students got a hold of that name first, and they use it as an inappropriate, you know, avenue of sharing information. But if the schools can get a hold of that name, for example, our Facebook is facebook.com/Omaha Nation, and I use it, you know, as a communication mechanism, which, you know, with not only the students but parents, community members, those interested in our school. They'll go there, and I post videos, I post photos, I post events that are going on in our school. I also provide updated information, especially in Nebraska with the seasons that we have. You know, if there's an early out, late start, if there's no school. And so, and I have also taken advantage of, you can link your Twitter to your Facebook. So every time I update a post or add anything to Facebook, it automatically tweets as well. And so the students are able to, you know, since they can't access Facebook at school when they get home, or they can get on Twitter, you know, because you can get texts from, you know, as well. And they can access it later, and they can, you know, keep updated that way. And the community has also used it now too, and they, you know, we communicate that way. Is there school today? I heard, you know, there's something going on, or we'll ask through that avenue also. So.
And so my second question is really about how do you, or what do you do with limited resources and still doing things that are engaging to students? How do you use what you have? So talk a little bit about what you have and how that has evolved, and then how you've used it to maximize student learning.
Sure. With limited technology, you know, you really have to be creative first. And so the one thing I've learned is you look for partnerships, and you look for not only organizations and teachers, you know, classes you can collaborate with, but also schools, you know, whether it be a neighboring school, also just, you know, with a college or university, as well as government agencies. You know, there's the government agencies, you know, they go through their computers, you know, pretty regularly, and they'll often give some of those to schools that apply for it through they have a funding mechanism where they exchange those out. But just developing partnerships, I developed a partnership, and we now have some computers in my school that those students are able to use. It's limited, but I take advantage of what I have, and maybe being creative with, like I said, and I find free resources on the internet that our school is able to access, and that's what I use in terms of providing the skills that I want my students to have in learning digital media, in learning, you know, social media, what we can access, and just making sure that you're creative, like I said, creating partnerships, and just using what you can that's free, that's out there. There's a lot of things that are free.
So give me a few examples.
Sure. I use, when I am in my digital media class and we're learning about, you know, creating videos and pictures, I use animoto.com, you know, and that's a great free resource. You can create something under 30 seconds for free. You can also create an educator account where you can get a little bit more time, but you know, they have pictures already on there, there's already videos on there, there's music already there.
And just put it together.
Yeah, you just put it together. You add your text. You add whatever photos you want to add. You can upload photos. You can upload videos, and you just create. That's what I use for my basic introductory unit to digital media. You know, we create just a class schedule, different lessons I've done, and then I eventually want to get them to where they develop a PSA, a public service announcement. And they are able to pick any social issue. So like I said, I want to engage them, but I also want to make it relevant to them. So they pick a social issue that they feel is affecting their community. In our small rural community, you know, we have a lot of issues that, you know, is unique to our situation. So the students will pick an issue, whether it's, you know, like I said, for some it's truancy, for some it's education, for some it's health issues, you know, that are affecting American Indians. Others, you know, alcohol and drugs, you know, that's something that's becoming big in smaller communities in Nebraska. And they, you know, they do the research. So yeah, it's a public service announcement with PSA, but I take it a little bit further, problem, solution, action. identify what the problem is that they feel, identify what a solution is, and what's an action they can take to kind of overcome that issue or just be more aware of it or find more information on it. And so I found that unit to be helpful for my students because, like I said, they're engaged in it, they're finding the research, they're relevant because it's about their community and what they feel is important.
And that really dovetails well about the things that a lot of the people who are doing educational technology are talking about now that goes beyond education, because this goes beyond the technology. This is about the problem, and it's in problem-based learning. We do talk about social problems, problems we have from the real world that now become part of our curriculum, and that becomes more meaningful and engaging, and technology just adds a layer. But it's not just technology, and it's definitely not technology for technology's sake.
Sure.
And so what other projects did they do? Now I'm interested. Intrigued.
Sure. I mean, we do a little bit further things. We create on some of the photo editing sites. Teach them how to edit photos. I mean, the different digital media process. Adding text to photos, creating different projects with text. Collages is something that's we're doing new this year with them, and they're creating. For example,
digital collages, or do you print out?
They're digital, when we create them, obviously, but then we will print them out. But I try to conserve because we're limited in technology. We're obviously limited on some of the things you can produce from it. But most everything's digital. But with a lot of the different sites and resources out there, a lot of it's connected now with Facebook, and it's connected with Twitter or any other photo sharing sites. And so our students will post it there, or they'll submit it that way, and then it's available for them when they get home. But yeah, I mean, for example, we just celebrated our annual powwow in our community in August, and so I had our students.
I know, I came.
Oh, good.
At least the one here.
Okay, sure. And so we had had a camera there, and the students, we took a lot of pictures, and the students were able to capture some different perspectives, that they felt was important to them at the powwow. And so that was, like I said, making it relevant to them. And they were engaged because the pictures were of their relatives, of their friends, and so they're able to, like I said, use that lesson and unit and creating an item that was important to them. And I had them print them out. We made a little collage of the photo collages on one of the walls outside of my classroom. And so when we have visitors come by, they love looking at it and seeing some of the pictures.
And all of that was done with how many cameras?
That was done with one camera.
Okay. And I think that's an important message for me, because we talked about this, and that is that you can do a lot with limited equipment if you think about it creatively and you plan it out.
Correct.
And then a few more computers, but you don't have a one-to-one school.
No.
Not even close. So there are ways to work with limited equipment if you think about it, you plan it out, you kind of lay it out, and you do something, and the kids have multiple opportunities. Now, we'd love to have, for everybody to have everything, but that's not our situation yet.
Exactly.
But we can do things that are meaningful.
Like I said, when we take the pictures, I download all the pictures to every computer, and then when the students are working on them, they have access to all the same pictures, and so that was unique seeing what they created. So,
okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, if you had a message for teachers as an alumni master this week, what would be your message to teachers who want to use technology?
To be creative, one, and to be flexible, because technology is evolving continuously. And so you can't really, rely on one form of technology as your technology to use in your classroom. And like I said, making sure it's relevant and engaging, because it's one thing to get technology in your classrooms, but you got to be able to use it, and you want to make sure your students are benefiting from the learning process in it. What are the students getting out of it? Like I said, and the more you can engage your students in it, the more they're going to appreciate it, and the more they're going to learn, from how important it is. And how and finding that value and finding what's important to them by using it and what they're learning and how they're going to use it in their future profession and future life. So,
making it relevant.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
And my name is Guy Trainin, and this is Tech Edge.